This may be hard to believe, and it may be a bit controversial, but my life as a black man in America does not live up to the narrative that you've heard. I have lived, as you can see, I'm more than a couple months old, and all of my life in the United States, different parts of the country, the West Coast, the East Coast, and I've only experienced racism one time. I'm talking about in your face, and make no doubt about it. We don't need a second opinion. Straight up racism. Other than that, it's never happened that I know of, that I can recall. Maybe I'm stupid, blind, crazy, or maybe I'm just God's favorite child. I have no idea. But I have never experienced racism. Now, I know racism exists. I'm not saying that it doesn't. And I've heard stories from other people that have gotten slapped in the face with racism. I've seen situations on the news. I've seen, read, heard all about it. I'm not an ignoramus. But what I'm saying is me personally and my life experiences, I've only experienced racism one time, and I'll tell you about it. But it's one time out of 70 years. So, driving while black, I've been black and I've been driving, and I've never had a challenge with the police. I have had run-ins with the police on several occasions, but it's not because of driving while black, and I'll even get into that. But it's just something that, like I said, I've heard about it so much, and I've even tried to make that. I made a comment once on somebody else's page concerning that, and they told me that they responded back saying that, I was lying. I'm not lying. That my forefathers would be rolling over in their graves. They would be so ashamed of me, and they would, I'm just setting everything back. That's, first off, I only have one father. I don't have four. And the other situation is the fact that everybody's life is different. I've been blessed that, even though racism has been a real thing in this country, racism exists all over with different types of people, for different people. When I was growing up, I know everybody had a name. Every group of people had a name. I won't go into those right now, name those names now, because I know TikTok will probably, cut me for it. But, it only became recently that you can't even say any of those names without being banned or, not unfollowed, but criticized for using it. And it's just, I understand it. I'm not saying that it was right or it was wrong or anything else like that. I'm just saying that it was what it was. But as I said, being discriminated against or having to deal with racism on a one-on-one basis. Now, I've heard a lot of racist remarks, okay, and usually by people who were well-meaning people, thinking that they were showing how not racist they were. To me, just showed me how racist they really were. Only because whenever you have to designate anything based on the skin color, whether it's positive or negative, not on that individual, not on individuals, and you kind of box everything together. Like one person once asked me, well, what do black people want? I'm not the spokesperson for all black people. How would I know? I know what I would want. But what I want, my wife doesn't even want. So, I can't, who speaks for all black people? Just because I happen to have this shade of color skin doesn't mean that I have the omniscient knowledge of everyone that happens to share this skin tone. I've heard people on introductions say, oh, one of my favorite singers is Stevie Wonder. Who cares? But I knew what they were trying to say is that, they appreciate black people too. It's an unnecessary statement. and it's actually racist, but I understood where they were coming from. It's kind of stupid, but I understand where they were coming from. And I'm not talking about those kind of statements. I'm talking about where someone deliberately, intentionally singled me out, and based on my race, came up against me. And I'll tell you about that. About 35 years ago, I'm old. About 35 years ago, I had a manufacturing company. It was for women's sportswear and dresses. And it was my own company. My wife and myself, we started the company, and we ran and operated the company completely alone. No bank loans, no business loans. We started it, we maintained it. Anyway, we had gotten a large order, and normally, as a manufacturer, you go to the mills, the fabric mills, in order to get your fabrics. Well, I had also heard of jobbers. Now, people that in the industry probably don't know what a jobber is. A jobber is someone who purchases closeouts or overruns from the mills, because the mills have to clean their inventory every season because they're bringing in new fabrics. So these people come in and buy up all their leftover lots for pennies on the dollar. They turn around, they open up a location themselves to sell to small manufacturers. So the prices are cheaper because they bought it for next to nothing. The prices are cheaper for the manufacturer, and therefore, you save. So as I said, I was looking for a particular type of fabric, and I heard that this particular place carried that type of fabric. So I went in, I looked around, and bam, wow, zap, there it was, the fabric that I needed. So now I just needed to find out more information on it. Anyway, as soon as, just at that point, the owner walked in, and he said, normally I don't sell to you people. And I thought, wow, this is a first. But let me get this straight. He doesn't sell to you people. Now, did he mean my skin tone people, or did he assume that maybe because I was in the fashion industry, I was gay, and maybe he was talking about those you people? But before I could interject and clarify, he came back with the statement that if I had been a talking head, now we use that term, talking head, because, again, I don't want to be banned by TikTok, but he didn't use the word talking, he used the word towel, like something you wrap up in after you take a shower. But if I had been a talking head, I wouldn't have gotten through the front door. And I thought, wow, that's pretty specifically racist, But a couple of thoughts ran through my mind several thoughts ran through my mind at that point. The first one was, this is his problem, not my problem. He's the one with an obvious problem. Second thought was, what would bring him to this point this rationalization. Being in business and you want to limit the people that you sell to, what, color or no color, green is green. So that was baffling to me. And third, I was thinking, I came here for the fabric. I found the fabric. I'm getting that fabric. I don't care what, and I'm not kissing butt or groveling or anything else in order to get it. I'm getting that fabric because I've been looking for it. It's here. I'm not going to let his insecurities or his trip, his simplistic mentality block me away from getting what I need and what I want. And third, for some reason, I just thought, this man has obviously said that he does not prefer people of my skin tone. But before I leave here, if he doesn't love anybody else or never loved another black person, on this planet. He's going to love me. That was just my attitude, you know. So, as I said, my next question was, well, what brought you to this point of not wanting to deal with certain groups of people? And he went on to tell me that since he had been in business, which led me to believe that this wasn't a lifetime racist attitude. This had a starting point. And so he went on to tell me that since he had started into business, that the only people that have ever screwed him were either black or people from the Middle East. Now, through credit card fraud, through bounced checks, through damaged goods, through returns, to, just all kind of fraudulent activities. This is what had gotten into that point. So I realized when I walked in the door, I was actually a red flag for him. Okay. I guess under different circumstances, I would have thought, wow, that's just racism, just come up with that. But years before that, several years, say probably about 3 or 4 years before that, I was in business I had a couple of partners who were also black, and we owned a clothing store. And just to give you a rundown on the type of area, I'm just specifying it because of what I'm about to say later. If any of you are familiar with the LA area, mid-Wilshire, it's actually mid-Wilshire, just east of West Hollywood, southeast of West Hollywood, not between where the Beverly Center is now, which had just been built, and Farmers Market. I had a clothing store, okay, and it wasn't just a little dump, it was a nice. We had a nice store, a really nice store. I'll talk about how we got that and how all that happened at another time. But we had a nice store, and I designed and we manufactured all the garments that were in the store. And we had some very interesting clientele. For some of you older people, you may know some of the names, and I'm only dropping these names, not for clout. I'm dropping these names so you have an idea of what level of store that I had. Like I said, it wasn't a dump. It wasn't just a side freak show. It was a legitimate clothing store. And the unique thing about our store is that I designed everything for it as opposed to purchasing stuff and just reselling. But we had clients like Barbara Bain, Suzanne Summers, Donna Summers, Ren Woods, the Brothers Johnson. I remember having members from the cast of The Wiz drop in, and they purchased. And we had quite an eclectic group of people. There was one woman who that was hilarious. Would drive from Vegas whenever she went to see a psychiatrist in Vegas. She lived in Vegas. She would drive after the session. She would drive all the way to LA to come to our store just to shop. It was her relief mechanism. Weird. But anyway, getting back to that, the only reason, like I said, I'm saying all this in order to say that the only people that ever ripped us off, shoplifted, gave bad credit cards, fraudulent credit cards, stolen credit cards, bounced checks, one time actually backed up a truck into our floor-to-ceiling window and stole all the clothing off the mannequin, were black people. Now, I thought that was really sad and pathetic because we all were black. There weren't a lot of black store owners at that time. In fact, there may have been one or two others in the whole area, from Melrose the Melrose Fashion District all the way down to 3rd Street, which is the street that I was on. And it was like, why would black people do that to black people? Now, it had happened so many times that I almost gotten to the point where I was a reverse racist. Didn't get to that point because I realized, hey, I'm black myself. I would never do that. A lot of our clientele wouldn't do that. But a bell goes off whenever you see somebody that looks like the people that hurt you. And it's just something that happens. You know, I mean, it's just an alarm that goes off. And it's like, you know, you have to be aware. You have to. So I did understand what he was talking about at that time. I never said this to him. You know, all this was just running around in my mind. But I never said this to him. And so I said, I told him, I see, I understand, I got where you're coming from, but I need this fabric. Okay, are you going to sell me the fabric? You know, I need to know, what the amount of yardage you have, if you can get more, what the content is, where it's originated from, and I need to know all these things. So he went on to tell me, he just kind of put all that aside. He went on to tell me, and we finalized the deal and so forth, and he finally asked me, came to the point of asking me, how was I paying for it? So I told him, well, I have a factor. Now, a factor for people who aren't in the industry or may be interested in it. I don't know even if they still exist today. I've been out of that game for so long. But a factor at that time was someone, it wasn't the bank, but it was similar to a bank that would basically front the money for whatever supplies and materials that you needed to fulfill an order. So basically you had to show them the order or give them a purchase order from whatever store or company that wanted merchandise from you. They saw the order, and based on that, when you went to purchase supplies, they would front the money, and then when the order was fulfilled and the order was paid for, then you pay the factor the money. Along with extra charges, of course, interest charges, of course. But, so I was factored. And he was like, oh, that's amazing because I've been trying to get a factor, And so I shared with him the information that had got. Back then, there weren't a ton of regulations like there are now. I mean, you can't turn around without, having to sign your life over for one thing or another if you're in business at this point. Back then, it was a lot simpler. I mean, I remember just starting into business. It only took like three or four things of paperwork in order to start up. Now it's probably 150 or more, and everybody gets paid. But, so, like I said, we finalized the deal. We shook hands. He asked me my name, and we left it completely different attitude that he had at the end than he had when I first walked in. Now, 2 weeks later, I just happened to be in the same area. Not coming back to him, but I happened to be in the same area, and I was in the street going someplace else. And I heard him run out the store. Oh, well, I saw him actually run out his business. And say, hey, Mr. Philpott, how you doing? When you coming back to see me? And I started thinking to myself, wow, this is the same guy that said that I don't usually sell to you people. And now I'm his friend. Okay. Now, as I said, I really could care less as far as really trying to impress or, make friends with. I had business to take care of. I wasn't there for a date. I wasn't there for a lifelong relationship. I was just there to purchase some fabric. And because of, what the attitudes and everything that he had going on, it just it took me aback. I wasn't expecting it. As I said, it's never happened to me before. I have been in situations with police officers which has been very ironic and weird. I have been in situations as far as jobs are concerned, as far as housing is concerned, as far as the educational system is concerned, and I've never had an issue. I don't know if it backs up to what my mom taught me when I was growing up. She just, her thing, the thing that she told me was that I'm a black boy now, but as a black man, you have to run faster, jump higher, be smarter. You have to run to the top. You have to run to the Empire State Building, run up all the stairs, jump off, and do a tap dance. You just have to be better. And that's just been, that's been my aim. Not that I've always been the best, because I never considered myself the best. I'm always aiming to improve. I'm always seeing ways that I can improve and trying to do much better. But as I said, the fact that the skin tone, I don't see where it's ever helped me back. In fact, to be honest with you, I've seen it as an advantage in a lot of cases. Through all these years, I've seen it as an advantage, especially if I walk into a room full of white people. I'm the focus of attention. All eyes are on me. Everybody wants to talk to me. So, and I hate attention. Actually, that is not my thing. I'm a very alone type of person. I like being alone. I've never wanted to be famous. I never wanted to be out there. I like my work to be out there. And that's what I aim to strive for, to do the best product that I can. And, just from a creative standpoint. But, as I said, racism, again, racist statements, yes. Like I remember being in this one situation, party type situation, where I was talking with this guy for a while. And he claimed to be an educator. And right in the middle of our conversation, he stopped and said, I've been listening to you speak during this time, and you speak more articulately than most white people that I know. And I thought, wow, that's pretty racist. You mean it as a compliment. But that is actually pretty racist, because you have automatically, and by racism, or as my daughter says, colorist, you're basing everybody based on their color. Because race-wise, we are all one race. We are the human race. Come in different colors. Just like cars are all cars. They come in different colors. They come in different colors, shapes, sizes. They have different names. They're made by they have different families. But they are all are cars. So you're basing it on the colors. You like red cars better than you like black cars. Or gray cars. You have a preference. And that's one thing. But to say all and preferences, no, I don't have a problem with that, because, everybody has preferences. I prefer broccoli over zucchini. My daughter will not eat mushrooms. She sees a mushroom a mile away. No. But what I'm saying is to put everybody of a certain group type into a box and say they all must think like this, or they all must do this, or that black people do this, or white people do this. To me, that's just retarded. Well, I shouldn't say retarded, because that's another one of those words. To me, that's just ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, members of your own family don't all think alike, don't all like the same thing. So how can you think that a whole group of people will could possibly like or be exactly the same way because one or two members of that family has done something? Well, that's it for now.